DOGE and deficits. Trump's efficiency department vanishes as the deficit explodes. According to Reuters, President Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, known as DOGE, or in some quarters as DOGE, has quietly disappeared 8 months before its charter was set to expire. The administration now acknowledges that DOGE, quote, doesn't exist in any meaningful way, despite months of high-profile claims that it was saving taxpayers tens of billions of dollars. The problem is that none of those savings were ever independently verified. There was never any public accounting of what DOGE actually accomplished. What has been verified is the impact of Trump's massive, big, beautiful bill. Nonpartisan budget analysis says it will add trillions of dollars to the deficit over the next decade. Those larger deficits are pushing interest payments toward $1 trillion a year, money that buys nothing new. It's simply the cost of past decisions. And while the administration claims to be fighting waste, it weakened provisions that would have lowered prescription drug prices and saved taxpayers billions. The pharmaceutical industry gets protections, the public gets the bill. Okay, so what's the real message here? DOGE quietly snuck out of town, out of DC without saying goodbye because it realized it had accomplished nothing. If you think government is more efficient today after DOGE, you are utterly fooling yourself. The only thing it did is show once again that large interest groups are going to continue to get what they want from the federal government and shaft you and me in the process. Let's dig a little bit deeper here. So this was great political branding initially. It got people excited because everybody, I'm included, everybody thinks there's waste in the federal government. The problem is one person's waste is another person's essential spending. So it's very hard to really cut much from the federal government. Again, I'm not saying there's not bloat, but we could differ on where the bloat is. One thing that cannot be debated is there's not a single penny of government spending that doesn't have a lot of people passionate about that money being spent. So let's look at some facts. DOGE, again, didn't delete waste. It helped camouflage who is looting the Treasury. The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, says Trump's one big, beautiful bill will add $3.4 trillion to deficits over 10 years. That's going to add billions of dollars more in extra interest rates from that bill alone. So here's a perfect example of government waste that DOGE did not address. Medicare drug price negotiations under existing laws were projected to save roughly $100 million over 10 years, plus billions more in lower out-of-pocket costs for seniors. But the so-called Big Beautiful Bill changed that. The negotiations under existing law were protected, and they got rid of that. They added special exemptions so the drug companies can make an extra $8.8 to $10.9 billion in extra revenue. So when you hear stories about, people smuggling in prescription drugs from Canada, or how much less expensive drugs are in the United Kingdom or anywhere in Europe, the first response is, well, that's of course, they have socialized medicine. We all know how bad socialism is. That's the instant knee-jerk response. That's not why the prescription drugs are less expensive. They're less expensive because the government says we're going to purchase all the drugs and we demand best possible rate. We demand a huge discount because we're a bulk purchaser. It's basically the concept of why you can get things less expensively if you go to Costco. It's why when I go to Costco, I can get a container of raspberries this big for $4.99, whereas if I go to the Publix grocery store where I am, I get a pint that's half as big, also $4.99. I save 50%. It's basically 100% more expensive if I go to the grocery store. So it's the same concept. Governments around the world understand that. So they strike deals to buy drugs in bulk at a huge discount for their entire population. Now, the United States has a big population buying drugs, and the government does pay for it most of the time through Medicare, through Medicaid, through health for veterans. So the government's already spending it. But because we like to live under this fiction of, we're private sector people here, we don't believe in these evil socialists, even though our government spends more money on health than any government in the world. Not supposed to know that. We live under this fiction. And the pharmaceutical executives, pretty shrewd group, they have just figured out if we funnel campaign cash to politicians, if we spend millions of dollars on campaign contributions, they'll let us charge whatever we want. And we're going to get billions and billions of dollars more money back because we can charge the high price. We can make Americans sort of the sucker customers of our business. And you're paying for it. I'm paying for it. Everybody pays for it. Now, of course, it is true that pharmaceutical companies do have to make money, or they're not going to have enough money to do research for the next drug. So I'm not suggesting they're all evil. I love pharmaceuticals that have saved my life, and I love penicillin, and I've had to use various drugs as other members of anyone's family does. At some point, everyone needs some kind of vaccine or pharmaceutical. So I'm not one saying that pharmaceutical companies are reflexively bad. No. I'm saying what is bad are the politicians who could strike a much better deal to save government money and simply don't, because they have, I don't want to hurt the feelings. My buddy who's the CEO of this big pharma company, he makes $60 million a year and he takes me to the Super Bowl for free. How's it going to look if he's got to go from a $60 million a year salary to $30 million a salary? My goodness, he might not give me free Super Bowl ticket, or he might not give campaign cash to my PAC to help me get elected. That's really what is the problem with our large government in a nutshell. You could say I'm oversimplifying. There are other issues, other examples of waste, yes. But ultimately, it comes down to businesses have figured out how to game the system. Very little of it, frankly, is going to foreign aid, less than 1%. And very little of it actually goes to poor, needy people. Our government, it goes around and around in circles, paying off various special interest groups a lot more than they could get in the private sector. Something that didn't get much attention recently was the demise of the penny, the copper penny, which cost about 3 or 4 cents to make. Why did that happen? Again, if you talk to the typical voter out there, why is the government so big? Many of them would say, well, we're giving money to poor people who are too lazy. And yet the 3 or 4 cents we spent to make a penny, which cumulatively adds up to tens of millions of dollars every year, it was to make copper mines happy, copper mining executives, copper mining CEOs and shareholders happier. They're like, we know it doesn't make any sense to spend 3 cents on copper to make a penny, but we love the fact that the government gives us a big paycheck to buy stuff they don't really need. That's why we did it. And we had politicians from states, and this is bipartisan, that were Democrats and Republicans who represented states where there were copper mines, who said, hey, we can't get rid of penny. It's too essential. So I will give credit. It did happen under the Trump administration. At least they're not wasting money on the penny anymore. But comparatively, that's pennies to the amount of money we waste every single year, simply because we're unwilling to negotiate with pharmaceutical companies. And if you really want to talk about waste, there's no organization with more waste than the Defense Department. But then they've got the perfect political messaging. If you dare criticize defense spending, automatically you're un-American. Automatically you're a part of the radical left. And so that conversation is off. And the political dynamics are such that if you're a Republican, you're pro-military, that's your brand. And if you're a Democrat, you're constantly worried about someone calling you a coward, anti-military, anti-defending America. So you generally, if you're a Democrat running for office or you're an incumbent member of Congress, you're like, I'll show them I'm tough too. Yes, I will vote for all the money that the Defense Department wants, and I'll give them more. I'll force them to take even more. Believe it or not, that is what